Hey, sports fans, Coach Nick here, and welcome to the Thunder and Wizards post-game show. It's a little bit later than normal, but we had some things to do to get ready before we did that. So Dave Dufour is back with us after the halftime show. We're back for the post-game show, and we had some interesting stuff happen. We actually got a chance to watch the Nuggets-Warriors game, too. So what are your thoughts so far?
Like we talked about at halftime, the Thunder Wizards game kind of turned into a blowout. I just think the Thunder looked flat. And so you and I, we were talking. I was like, okay, I guess I'm going to switch over to the Warriors game. And they were down like 20 when I switched over. So it seems like both teams kind of had a little bit of an emotional letdown tonight. Let's just say I feel bad for the Kings on Wednesday. After not only did the Kings beat the Warriors last time they played, they're playing at Oracle, and the Warriors just got embarrassed. And the Nuggets tied the NBA record for most threes in a game. So Warriors might score 160 on Wednesday. I mean, it's going to be insane.
Yeah, and for sure, there's the notion of, is there a letdown? Does it really exist? And certainly, in a February game, you're on the road enough times after playing an emotional game. Yeah, there seems to very clearly be that issue of a letdown. I think that for the Warriors' case, what comes into play is the mile-high air. Like, they seem to be dragging a little bit. But I watched the stretch there in I think it was the second quarter, whenever I turned it on, and I was blown away by how many threes. They were just nailing threes. I mean, it wasn't even close. Like, the net was barely moving. And by the way, as a coach, it's exciting to me. I would love to be part of that. And so there wasn't much you were going to do. I actually didn't get a chance to see some of the comeback. Was there any kind of merit to what was going on, or was it just sort of delaying the inevitable?
Oh, yeah. I mean, the young guys for the Warriors came out. They played really well. A lot of pressure defense. Got it to within 9, and then it just fell apart. And, it was the one cold stretch for the Nuggets, and the Warriors' young guy got kind of hot. So,
yeah. Well, what do we think so far about the Wall versus Russ matchup? Did we get what we wanted?
Well, I mean, the game was over so fast. I mean, Russ only played 24 minutes in this. I guess he played 5 minutes in the third, and that was it for him. Luckily, I'm kind of glad that they shut it down early instead of having him stay out there to pad his stats. He finished with 17.
Are you hating on Russell Westbrook right now?
I'm not. I'm just saying, let's not pretend that it's not a thing. It is a thing. I mean,
okay.
We know it's a thing. Okay.
Well, okay. Can we say that it's a thing? And because we already know that they're letting him get the rebounds and the missed free throws.
Yeah.
And like that handoff for the dunk on that for his 10th assist on the other night, like that just seems to confirm a lot of it too, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And so, again, I was happy to see that they shut it down when the game was out of hand. And he finished with 17, 4 and 4, 5 of 19 shooting. Only 2 turnovers. So in 24 minutes, that's not bad. He was on pace for 3, I guess, for the game. So, John Wall controlled this game, I think. 14 assists. I mean, he got his entire team involved. Bradley Beal was fantastic, 22 points. Markieff Morris, 23. He was just too much inside, and it was a really well-balanced game for the Wizards. It showed their defensive potential. I mean, they held them under 100 points. And I just thought the Wizards looked great. I really do think that the Wizards are a backup point guard away from being a legitimate threat to the Cleveland Cavaliers in the East.
Yeah, they definitely need they need that. And I also mentioned before, Jason Smith can't be your first big off the bench. He can't really be, I don't know if he could be your second big off the bench and be a legitimate contender, right?
Right.
Can he be the second big? Maybe. But he can't be the first, and he's certainly, what are the minutes out here? I know that
he was a minus 14 in 21 minutes tonight. He was the worst player that the Wizards put out on the court. Mahinmi played 15 minutes, was minus 6, but I don't remember the context of those. But you got to hope that those Smith minutes come down. I mean, I'd love to see Mahinmi getting all of those Smith minutes, and I'd rather see Andrew Nicholson or anyone else than Jason Smith.
Yeah, Nicholson's an enigma because I swear he had this weird thing where whenever I turned on the Orlando Magic game, he would literally score within 10 seconds of me turning it on. I swear it happened like every time I would turn it on. And he's kind of like that Zach Randolph guy. He's not like hyper athletic, doesn't look pretty doing anything, but he can just fill the ball up, put the ball in the basket. And I don't know why he hasn't been able to find a better situation. This might, maybe, this could be it, or this should be it, but, Jason Smith comes in and takes all those minutes. It's weird. Maybe that will eventually start to change as, Mahimi certainly will get those minutes, I think. So, and then that'll change everything else. So hopefully we see at least him get a shot.
Buggins B on Periscope just said that they should have kept Chris Humphries. I agree. I think Chris Humphries is a guy that they could be using, especially with his ability to shoot the three. Jason Smith just, the 16-footer. I'm sorry, man, but the 16-foot jumper is just dead. Like, if that's your main weapon and you're not bringing anything on the other end, you just can't get on the court. And you can't stay on the court.
Right. And there's no question that if you're going to compare Humphries to Jason Smith, that's a done comparison right there.
Yeah.
Humphries is better, and
Jason Smith is barely an NBA player.
Right. He's a big body, but defensively he's a bit clumsy. He's getting in the way. There's enough to think that maybe he can help, but just not really, not against the really good teams. That's what we're trying to look at for the Wizards, and I think they to be considered that way too. So, they're posting some big wins. They're playing really well. Otto Porter looks just fantastic. Again, every time we watch him, he's just got good energy. I kind of wanted to see, he missed a couple open threes. What did he finish with?
2 of 5.
2 of 5. That's fine. 40%.
He was plus 38 for the game.
Yeah. What the funny thing is the Wizards shot 62% from the field. Oh, I'm sorry, from 3, and 57.5% overall, and it still felt like they missed a lot of easy shots. That's how bad the Thunder defense was tonight. For whatever reason, I guess
just no energy, man. Yeah. I think they just had no energy. I've never seen Russell Westbrook look tired, and a couple minutes into the third quarter, you could just see it, man. Like, he was dead. Like, it's that time of year, like we talked about, and I think coming off that big game the other night, and they were on the road right after that, I just think it was a recipe for disaster for them, whether they win or lose. Look at the Golden State totally crapped the bed tonight too, for the same reason. Like, when you get up emotionally for these big games, and Golden State's still on the road. And Golden State went to Denver, where it's really tough to play with the elevation. I think that it's a recipe for disaster. With Oklahoma City, lots of emotion. They went to Washington, so they actually changed time zones. I just think that kind of stuff, it matters. And, I'm not looking too much into this for Oklahoma City, but what I do look at is it's another big win for the Wizards. It's a marquee matchup, national game. These are the types of games that the Wizards have the last few years not done too well in. Think about the playoffs. Like the one year they had the nice run in the playoffs with Paul Pierce, but then, kind of had a letdown last season. And so I think that this is, I think this is who they are. I think they are, the second or third best team in the East.
Absolutely. So when do the Celtics play the Wizards? That's got to be a matchup I want to see. That would be worth putting on the calendar, I think, to see where they stack up here.
I'll pull it up.
You pull that up, and I'm gonna go to a Twitter question real quick. And don't forget, sports fans, ask any questions you want on Twitter. Just mention me, or maybe mention me, and we'll bring it up on the screen right now, and we'll answer them live. So first off, what we have.
you had to pick a winner or a loser in every trade, I'm pretty sure he's lost every single trade he's made. Not to say that they've necessarily been bad trades, but he's getting lesser assets. Like if you trade $1 for 4 quarters, you're losing.
Okay, well, look at what they got out of the Harden trade, which is probably the biggest one you can criticize him on. Was they got Steven Adams eventually? It's all they got out of that one. Okay, no one knew that Harden was going to be MVP candidate every year after that, but still, you look at the trade they did with the Magic. He fleeced the Magic, I would say, with that one. So and the record they do have for the picks themselves is good, and whether or not I guess you could say, but remember the draft is a crapshoot, and plenty of teams have those same picks in the same range and don't hit them, and they've hit them enough where something's going on. I just think that they might have put all their eggs in the basket for us, and that might be their downfall. Yeah,
I mean, I think that they, I think they should still be thinking about trading Russ. And if I were them, I'd be calling Boston, and I would be calling them about the Nets picks, and Jaylen Brown, and any young asset you can get your hand on from Boston. And I would say, hey, look, we've got Russ. Let's make this work, because what they have now is one guy, and that the NBA, you just can't do that anymore. You just cannot be a viable team with one guy. By the way, Celtics-Wizards, the next game is March 20th, and the Wizards lead the season series 2-1.
Already. Where is that game?
In Boston. So that's going to be fun.
Yeah, and hopefully it's not
like the
second of hey, let's go. March when?
March 20th.
I'm already traveling. All right. Anyway, can't do that. But nonetheless, that could be a fun game. Hopefully, it's not a second of a back-to-back or any of that kind of crap. But was there any fallout to the Russ hand injury that they mentioned a little bit, and he was holding it? Did you see anything more about that?
I haven't seen anything.
Okay.
Yeah, I was looking for it, but I didn't see anything.
Yeah, it looked kind of like nothing. It looked kind of random, like just kind of hit it and whatever. But you never know what that means as far as when they didn't put it back in. The starters for the Wizards were in a lot longer, and usually you would think, oh, Russ is going to demand to go back in. I got to go out there, and he didn't. So I'm kind of keeping my eye on that one. We'll have to hear if they have anything on that. Let's see here. Do we have what else we want to talk about then? Because we have some time. We can.
Quickly with the Nuggets. They were incredible tonight. Jokic scored 17. He had 21 rebounds, 12 assists, and in 36 minutes. I mean, that's an amazing triple-double. Juancho Hernan-Gomez, 6 of 9 on threes, 27 points. As a team, they were 24 of 40 on threes. Like I said before, they tied the NBA record. They were incredible tonight on the offensive end. I mean, they were really fantastic. And the Warriors just could not buy a bucket at all.
Right.
So, yeah, it was that was a fun game to watch. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, me. You know what? Me too. Well, the part I did see, I really enjoyed. I mean, there's nothing like watching that when a team you just can feel it. You can see it. It's over, and the ball is moving. And no matter what they do, it kept getting open threes. It was just one of those things. And I liked watching distance shooting. Who doesn't? I suppose.
Yeah.
Although certainly people who don't like certain teams, certain players will yell at me on Twitter all they like about celebrating those moments. And it's like, hey, just enjoy it. This is fun. This is what we're going to in the NBA. This is a new era. We were speaking
I'm disappointed the Nuggets only shot 43s. When you're that hot, every single shot should be a three.
Right.
Jack them up.
They were actually, I think, like 21 of 32. So they ended up going 3 for 9 at the end. They really cooled off.
They got cold.
But at any rate,
someone on Periscope just alerted me to this fact, and I was looking at the score here. I did not watch this game, but the Clippers beat the Jazz and held them to 72 points at home. That is embarrassing. Yeah. Not just the 72 points, but Chris Paul's still out. Losing to the Clippers. If you're the Jazz and you want people to take you seriously, and this was one of my big issues with them coming into the season. Everybody's like, oh, they're gonna be a top 4 seed in the West, and 55 games is on the table, and blah blah blah. Look, you got to show me, man. I need to see it.
Yeah.
and their health has been an issue. And health, while not like a skill that you can develop, I mean, I guess you sort of can. Health is at least a physical attribute, and they have terrible health on their team. I mean, it seems like every single, like, what is it? Every week somebody else is hurt.
Yeah.
And so, it's been like this for the last few years where they've been like, oh, we're the up and coming young team and blah, blah, blah. And we haven't seen it. And they had a chance to beat someone who's neck and neck with them in the standings. And they got embarrassed at home. I mean, it was only a 16-point win. But I'm sorry, man. My high school team scored more than 72 points.
Yeah. They can't seem to get any kind of consistency. They kind of take a step forward and a step back. And you're right. They're just not. They don't believe, I suppose, is part of it. I have to go and do a deep dive and really look, because I have seen good execution and good coaching and detail-oriented stuff. But then you kind of then they fall apart. I think Gordon Hayward is not as good as people think. I really
not
don't.
at all. Not at all. I agree with you completely. Rodney Hood is out right now. Rodney Hood is their best wing player. I mean, George Hill, Rudy Gobert, and Rodney Hood are their three best players. And I think Gobert is probably their best player. But I'd take George Hill over Gordon Hayward today. Now, in 3 years, I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. Now the Jazz fans are going to come with the torches and the pitchforks right now for you.
I've been fighting the OKC folks all day, so I can handle the nice people from Utah.
Okay. Good luck with that. Maybe I'll help the Fires on Twitter after we're done here. But there's something about Hayward that the plays that he does make that are nice are like, wow. Like I'm never like sold that those are going to be the plays he can make every game. And that's what happens, where he just he kind of like and then he had a real clunker tonight, 2 for 12, 1 for 6 from 3, and 7 points total, no assists. So it's a problem. They're sort of they're good, they're well coached, but they don't believe that they're good enough. And
they can't shoot. They can't shoot.
Well, you have Joe Ingles, who's leading the league in 3-point shooting.
But that's it. And what they're really missing is a shooting big. Like Gobert is fine setting screens, but he's no threat to shoot outside of 5 feet. So the screen is neutered a little bit.
Hey, catching the ball when they throw it to him is not a guarantee. So
yeah,
it's interesting. And now they're going to come after me. Great, I couldn't resist. Go.
Gordon Hayward's shooting 39% from 3, so Gordon Hayward can shoot a little bit. But I mean, like as a team, it just feels like they're not shooting well. George Hill is at 40%. Let's see. Man, I guess I could have pulled this up. If I had known I was going to talk smack about him, I would have had this ready. But, outside of those guys, Rodney Hood, nobody else is shooting.
Right. Well, what are you going to do? We were talking about the Raptors earlier today and kind of I'm prepping a breakdown. Dave, you were nice enough to hop on a call just to kind of discuss what was going on. And, it was interesting. I'll just throw a couple things out there just so we can, maybe explore further. What did we come up with? One of the things was their offense in the last 14 games has tanked, right?
Yeah,
from a number one offense or number two.
Right, they're not hitting shots like they were, and it's because I think their offense we're talking about the Raptors in case everybody missed that. Their offense is. I don't know. Their offense just isn't generating good looks. And, they're not hitting those mid-range. DeRozan's not shooting 58% from mid-range anymore. So that's not propping them up artificially. And then that Lowry and bench unit kind of fell off a cliff the last, 14 games or so.
It certainly did. And when we were looking at that, and it wasn't the offense that kind of fell off, it's the defense. They couldn't stop anybody. They have like a 130 net rating with that lineup. So it's who is it? Lowry, Corey Joseph, Terrence Jones, Nogueira, and Patrick Patterson, I think, right? That's the fifth. And they cannot guard anybody all of a sudden. So it's a kind of an interesting thing where they did so well in the first 41 games of the year, that 5, that you imagine they could get back and figure out what's going on and get that taken care of. But I don't think the shot selection is going to change any the rest of the year.
Yeah, well, and so the difference between this season and the past couple seasons with them is that their defense has fallen off a cliff. They're not the top 10 defense that they've been the last few years. They're middle of the pack at best.
Yeah.
And their record was a little artificially inflated because of how good their offense was the first half of the season. And now that offense has dropped off, they don't have the defense to fall back on. Like, I think people don't realize how important it is that either your defense or your offense needs to be, top 5 to really be a contender. You need one of them. This is why the Rockets are a legitimate contender. They have the number 2 offense with number 12 defense. The Spurs, the Warriors, the top 5. I mean, the Warriors are 1-1.
Yeah.
So this is what it takes. You need one of those in the top 5 to be considered a legitimate contender. And the Raptors just haven't been able to survive that offensive drop off. I mean, that's what it's all about.
Well, we were talking about some trades today on the podcast. If you haven't heard it, definitely head over to iTunes and check it out because it's more of the same in this conversation. But certainly, we're thinking that they could make a trade for DeMar DeRozan now and probably improve their chances for getting to the Eastern Conference Finals.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, there's got to be a team out there that could use a guy that can score 30 points.
Yeah,
I imagine. Like you could find a spot for that guy that works. But what they have in Toronto, they don't really need him as much. And I know that sounds crazy, but they can find those points in other places. It may be 2 or 3 guys, but they can find those points. What they need like a 4 or a 5 that can step out and shoot, a little bit, space the floor, and also protect the rim. I mean, Valanciunas, like we've talked about, just doesn't really move the needle for me at either end of the floor. I love Patrick Patterson, but I like him better coming off the bench or playing like with the small units. So, there's something they can do. It's just they just need to do it. Like the optics of trading DeMar DeRozan can get a little funky. They just signed him to the max deal. Yeah. He was their draft pick, homegrown, stuff like that. And so, it's tricky. But yeah, I mean, if I was Masai Ujiri, I would totally be thinking about doing that.
I mean, that's the question is, are they happy to compete, get to the second round of the playoffs, maybe get to the conference finals, or do they want to do something deeper than that, or at least shoot for that? Because clearly right now, they're in danger of being overtaken by either Boston or Washington this year. And that's a disaster for what they have. That could trigger a whole, the weird thing is here's a team that's probably had the most wins in the Eastern Conference behind Cleveland in the last few years. And yet you could trigger an avalanche of Casey getting fired, trading DeRozan, trading Valanciunas, but coming back with a much better coach who is a little bit more suited to the modern game of movement and 3-point shooting, and then a better 3-point shooter at that position to go along with Lowry and the rest of those guys. Then you have a team.
Are you proposing that the Toronto Raptors hire me as their coach? Is that what you're going for here?
Sure, you can take over. It's if you don't mind the cold weather and the whatever, I guess the Canadian dollar. But I like Trudeau. I wouldn't mind living in Canada if that was my president or whatever you call him, prime minister.
It wouldn't be so bad.
Right.
Do you have any more Twitter questions?
Wait, we have 13 tweets in my mentions. Let's see if there are any questions here. Yes, let's head on over there, shall we? We have. Okay, now they can hear us, right? Check one. Let us know. Can you hear us now? I hit a button and I shouldn't have. Sorry. Let us know. Can you hear
Okay,
us
all
now?
right, we're good. We're
Good. Sorry
good.
about that.
Thanks. Bug and B got us straight. Our new tech support guy. All right. So the Pacers. We're talking about the Pacers. What can they trade? What can they get? Um, yeah, I just don't think they have a lot of assets. Is their big thing. Like nobody wants Ellis. Nobody wants Brooks. Anything that anyone would want, they wouldn't want to give up.
True. Right, because what you want to build around in Indiana is, well, did you mention that they probably could trade Paul George?
They could trade Paul George. Yeah. I mean, I would love to see them build around Miles Turner because I just don't think that the team that they're stuck with right now has a chance to compete anytime soon. And I'd be worried, even with the new DVPE extension, in the new CBA, I'd still be worried about Paul George walking next year. He's clearly unhappy. It's, you can't lose a player like Paul George for nothing. Right? Like
Right.
what Oklahoma City did last year or last summer, losing KD for nothing hurt them. It set the franchise back. Like they're lucky to be the 7th seed. And so you need to be on top of that, and they shouldn't trade him right now. I mean they're in it. But this summer it's something that they need to sit down with him. They need to try to work out an extension because the new extension rules will allow that 5-year extension to be signed this summer when he's got a year left on his contract. So they need to work it out. And, if he doesn't sign this summer, because there's no incentive for him to wait like there used to be. The new CBA has cleared all that up. You can give him the full amount and the full length. So if he doesn't sign, you've got to start thinking that he's not going to stick around. So you need to move him and, before you lose him for nothing.
Absolutely. Great.
That's where I'm at.
Great point. Just tweeting this out so people can join us. We have a lot of people still here. All right. Should I try this one more time? I'm going to see if I can't get the sound to do it because we have another question on Twitter. Let's see if this works. Okay, so we'll go back to this. Eventually I will figure out how to get the darn our sound with that video. We're still learning this new system here, but the question was, if you didn't see, was from Jeff Jimenez. What do you think the Rockets need to do to win the chip? Well, that's a good question because I like their team. They're doing well. So, Dave, what do you think they're missing, really?
I think they're on the right track. I think that they just need some bench depth. Anything to get Corey Brewer off the court.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd love to see him be able to get Ibaka. The financial part of it doesn't really work. They don't really have tradable assets, or at least they don't have assets that they would want to trade. Clint Capella is really developing well, so I wouldn't imagine they would want to move him. And, Anderson and Gordon have been fantastic. Ariza is so good. I think that they're this is the team that they've got. They may have a small move here and there. Like I said, try to replace those Corey Brewer minutes. But other than that, I don't think there's any moves that they can make or that they necessarily should make.
Right. Yeah, that's true. I mean, I think they're going to have to ride it out the way they have it now, and we'll see. We'll just have to see what they do as far as I think this is what they have here because no one wants Corey Brewer, and they might. Do you think they have enough? Do they have enough to compete? I mean, they can't compete with the Warriors. Let's just say that, but can they compete with everybody else?
Yeah, I think they can. They can sort of compete with the Warriors. Like I think that they could steal a game or two, in a playoff series, and they've shown that they can compete with the Spurs. I think that they could be the 2 seed. They've fallen off a little bit here recently. January was not a good month for them, but if they get back to how they were playing in December, I really think we could see them make a push for the 2 seed.
Absolutely. I'm just kind of curious, real quick. If I want to do this and see if I fix the sound while you're talking. Can you hear us now while we're talking? While you're looking at the Twitter thing, it looks like you can.
Can you guys hear us?
Let's see what they say.
Yes, it's fixed.
Okay, cool.
Nice.
Yeah, so while you were talking, I figured out. The only problem is I can't move this damn thing when I want to move it to get it more centered. But whatever. We will
That's all
figure it
right.
out. Do we have any other questions while we're here? Let's see here. Let me
We've
move
got
this.
we've got some here on. I'm looking at on YouTube. We talked about the Raptors already. Who's better, John Wall or Russell Westbrook? I mean, that depends on, this is what, idiot ties or whatever. That is kind of open to interpretation. I'll take John Wall. I just think John Wall makes his teammates better. And not that Russell Westbrook doesn't. I just think John Wall's better at it. And not to mention, John Wall is one of the best defenders in the league. And Russell Westbrook can barely be bothered to play defense. So that's where I'm at. I'll take Wall.
Well, I agree. We have Adam asking, why do you think Kyrie is the best point guard in the East and Lowry is? Why do I think that Kyrie is not the best and Lowry is better? He asked me because I referenced that on whatchamacallit, on Twitter the other day or today about that. So I don't know. Why isn't Kyrie the top point guard in the East?
Kyrie Irving doesn't play defense. And, I mean, other than that, like, his offensive game is fantastic. He is for sure one of the best offensive players in the league, right? Individual offense. He doesn't necessarily make his teammates better, but what he does with the basketball, like, you cannot stop him, especially on the right-hand side of the court. Like, he is unstoppable. And so, but the problem is you got to be able to play both ends.
Right.
And he just doesn't do that. I mean, this is one of those things where you'll see these Twitter threads where people are trying to support the argument that someone is a good defender or someone is not a bad defender by showing these individual plays. And like Kyrie had a game where he had 7 steals. Well, that's great. But how many off ball, like how many weak side rotations did he miss? How many times was he late on the help or not helping the helper or, all these other things? Like there's more to it than just blocks and steals. How many deflections does Kyrie Irving get? Like how many shots does he alter when he's the defender on the ball? And so there's so many things to factor in that like just showing me this one defensive possession doesn't do.
Right.
And so I think that gets, it's easy to, like, I can make anyone look like a good defender if I put together a highlight reel.
Fair enough.
Not.
It looks like you're talking to me about my Steph Curry defensive video from
no,
last year.
But you focused on the stuff that makes Steph a good defender. Right now, like one-on-one defense is the hardest thing you can do in the NBA. If you're playing one-on-one, the offensive player always has the advantage. But Steph Curry, he's a team defender, which is what the Warriors do. This is why they're the number 1 defense in the NBA. They switch everything. They're smart. He's a super smart help defender. He's great at reading passing lanes. He gets a ton of steals in the offense. He doesn't gamble for them. Like he's not jumping passes like Russ out at the wing, which gets you burnt.
Right.
You leave yourself open to the backdoor cut or wide open 3. So, Steph Curry is at least an average defender, and I actually think he's a good defender when you factor in the team defense. So, but more than that, so back to the original question, John Wall is the best point guard in the East. It's not Kyle Lowry. Kyle Lowry, they're both better than Kyrie, but John Wall is hands down the best. I'll take John Wall over any East point guard. Am I wrong? Am I crazy?
I think what sets him apart is his physical ability, which simply Kyle Lowry cannot match at all.
Right.
And that goes a long way. It might not be fair to Lowry. He's not born that way, but it is a fact. And so, when you watch Wall like today, he can have a profound effect on a game with scoring 10, 12 points. Kind of like Magic Johnson used to. And plus, on the defensive end, too, he had a couple plays on Russ that were really impressive, like cutting him off and stopping him, and then getting a steal or two with really quick hands. So when he is playing that way, I could see that. I could see why, it's a good argument, but certainly Wall deserves more. I probably deserve to, should do a video on him as well, just to kind of make that clear. But, I agree with all that. That makes sense to me. And, it's a great argument, though. I love to have that argument all the time on Twitter because it's, there's a lot to talk about. We have another question here on Twitter, which is from Danny Drinkwater, asks, who do you think Boston will trade for before the deadline? And they probably should sneak in there, do you think that Boston will trade for anybody before the deadline?
I mean, I imagine that they will make a trade. I mean, they've got a lot of assets. I don't think they're going to trade the Nets pick. I think they're going to keep the Nets pick unless they could get a huge fish. And by a huge fish, I mean like a DeMarcus Cousins, maybe Jimmy Butler. That's the only way they're moving that pick. Because, they're going to have a top 3 pick in one of the best draft class in a long time, with the chance to get a Markelle Fultz or Alonzo Ball or Josh Jackson, or any of these players that they could probably plug in potentially right into the starting lineup, just because these guys are so talented and they're big and they can shoot and they play defense. I just don't think they need to make a trade for their future. Now, if you're thinking just short term for this one season, they're going to need to make a trade to compete with the Cavs, but they could just run the same team back plus, this high draft pick, and they'll be better than they were this year.
Yeah, I suppose. But remember rookies and the whole thing with them. If it's a point guard or whatever, they're going to choose and do the whole Isaiah Thomas, whatever they're going to do with that. That might not be a next year thing. It might be like a little bit longer down the line. And then all of a sudden, guys like Jay Crowder are a little bit beyond perhaps their prime. Jay Crowder is still what he's 25 maybe? How old is he?
I'm not sure.
Something like
I'm
that.
terrible
So,
at that.
yeah, right. So it's either way. It's really a question of like what they want to do. They want to like accelerate the process, or is there like a few more years in their plans? I don't know. I feel like they could probably just bide their time until LeBron gets over the hill, which is going to be sooner than later, and that's probably when they're going to make that move, which is certainly not this year.
Yeah, Jay Crowder, he will be 27 this summer.
Okay, so he's still got several years before he gets out of his prime, but it's an interesting thing. But I think they're just simply waiting for LeBron to decline enough where they can make that run.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this is why the Horford signing was weird to me, because Horford is 30, 31. They signed him to the 4-year deal. Like it'll be the end of that deal before they're ready to really compete for a championship, I believe. And that'll be well past when he's a useful player. I mean, he might be, he might still be a starter, but he's not going to be Al Horford.
Right.
I mean, his game's not predicated on athleticism or anything, but there is a certain amount of physical stuff that you got to be able to do. I mean, this year he's been kind of up and down with physical stuff. Of course, he had the concussion, but there's been some other nagging things that have kind of showed themselves. So kind of hurting him a little bit.
Absolutely. Well, another question on Twitter we have here is from Brandon Clark. Asks us, would you prefer CJ or Dame if only given the choice of one? This has become a thing all of a sudden. It wasn't that clear, before. Maybe not. It may not even be clear now. But it's a really good question. What do you think, Dave?
I would take CJ.
Yeah, this is what we talked about in our podcast earlier today, right?
Yeah. Which, if you guys haven't already subscribed, make sure you go on iTunes and subscribe to the B-Ball Breakdown podcast. We do a weekly podcast. We get to answer a lot of your questions that we don't get to on the live shows. And, it's been, we've done 10 now, and, it's been going really well. But we did touch on this today. Maybe the way forward for the Blazers is to move one of those two guys and try to get back a few guys that can play, or a guy that can play and a nice future asset that could be another guy who could play. And because it's tricky to have two guards that can't play defense. They kind of mimic each other's skills a little bit. But I just happen to like CJ's game just a little bit more than Dame's.
Yeah, I agree. I do. Dame's shot selection is a little bit troubling, or a lot troubling a lot of the time. And CJ just seems to play within himself a lot more, and has all the skills in the world. So does Dame, but gosh, CJ has the handle, he has the floater game, he has the 3-ball, he's got the mid-range, he can pass. So, it's an interesting question what they're going to do and how they're going to continue to ride this out with him. Because I don't think that I don't know if it's the issue. I think that they were on their way last year and building to something. And I like I said in this podcast, I think Evan Turner is what ended up sort of mucking this up a little bit. And they haven't recovered. And it's one of those things where, O'Shea, tried to hit a home run with a singles hitter and, ended up, with a a grounder up the middle or something like that might get fielded into a double play. Who knows?
Yeah.
That's the end of my baseball metaphors. But any questions that grabbed you on Periscope as we start to wrap this up?
No, you know what? If you guys want to get in some questions really quickly before we finish it up, I'll take the next two. How does that sound?
Okay, as they fly by quickly, and give us some hearts. I love the hearts on Periscope. I love to see them fly by, so give me some. Let's see them. Boom, boom, boom. I'm going to give myself some. Yes, there they are.
Jokic or Porzingis. We already talked about that a little bit, so I won't count it, but I think we're both on Team Jokic.
Yeah, love Jokic. My only lament was I didn't get a chance to interview him when I went to their shoot around. I don't know. I ended up getting Gallinari, which I'll release soon, and
yep.
Good interview, but still, I wish I got Jokic. I'll get him next time.
Someone asked the best center in the East. For me, it's Joel Embiid.
Yeah. I mean, but by far, he's the best center in the East.
Yeah. Oh, I like this one. Best international player not in the NBA yet.
Ooh. Well, there's this kid who's 17 I've been looking at, and I'm blanking on his name now.
The kid that's playing in Spain?
Yeah.
Why can't I think of his name?
And I've been saying
Zlivich or something like that.
There's nothing in there, yeah.
And I've watched tape on him, and I can't believe I'm blanking on his name. If anybody knows who we're talking about, feel free to say it. I will say
Luka Doncic. Now I forget how he spelled it.
Luka Doncic.
Doncic? Is that how it is?
Isn't it?
Doncic. Something like that.
Doncic.
Somebody out there tell us how to pronounce his name. I had it in my head. Now I'm forgetting. But
yes.
Luka Doncic.
Luka Doncic. Actually, Ante Zizic is really, really good as well. The Celtics have his draft rights, and he's doing really, really well in the Adriatic League. And, yeah, it was a really good question, Justin. And then Milos Teodosic is my favorite guy to watch.
No, he's my favorite guy to watch.
Oh, he's my favorite guy to watch.
No, I've had him. He's
when
mine.
I play 2K, I always drop him into the free agent pool and sign him to whatever team when I'm playing my GM. That's my guy. I love Radulica, and it is shocking to me that the Warriors didn't even think about sending him a camp invite. He would have been great for them this year. Like on a minimum deal, he was so good in the Olympics. He's such a good passer, and he's just a big brute force. So, I mean, I love all those, Serbian and Croatian guys anyway. I'm biased.
Okay, fair enough. Hey, there's lots of love there. So, one day we're going to get over there and do a tour of basketball. We're going to make a show. We're going to do it. So stay tuned for that.
Hang on. I got one more question.
Okay.
One more. And because this person added me. What do I think about running an offense against the Warriors through the big? Now, this is interesting because we saw it tonight, right? Like, Jokic is sort of the fulcrum of the Denver offense and operating from the elbow. Now, against a team with, if you were playing a team where the defense was predicated on the center, so if you were playing like Utah, well, then having Jokic operating at the elbows gives you a huge advantage because you're pulling Gobert away from the rim, or you're forcing a switch with like where the four would have to guard Jokic out so that Gobert could kind of hang out weak side or whatever. But with the Warriors, they just switch everything anyway, and I don't think it makes that much of a difference. Tonight was all about they came out, they were flat. It happens. I'm sure Kerr is talking about it in the post game. And he'll blame himself, which, it's not his fault. These guys are professionals. They need to be able to get up for this game and stay even for the game Saturday night. But if you really want to take advantage of the Warriors on defense, you've got to be able to – you got to have like 4 or 5 guys that can create off the dribble. That's what you need. And then when you get the switch that you want, you have to attack it. And so this is why the Cavs were able to win the title last year. They kept going at Curry, and they wanted to get him one-on-one in isolation. Because, again, one-on-one is the toughest thing you can do. And when you're smaller like Curry, it's not like you can just body the guy up and go chest to chest. Like, they're going to call you for a foul. And he was so exhausted. He was hurt, and he was banged up from getting beat up the whole game. Like, it was really smart strategy. And so they'd isolate him on one side after the switch and go at him. So that's the trick. Like, if you want to beat the Warriors, that's how. or shoot 24 for 40 on threes.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, and also they were getting Curry switched on LeBron a little bit, and there isn't a point guard in the world that could guard that. Yet Curry is being roasted for getting roasted by LeBron, which is like exactly that's what's going to happen. So hopefully they don't switch as much. There are switches they don't need to do. Last year they didn't need to do them as much. This year I feel like it's a little bit better, but it doesn't. It's kind of moot because we haven't really seen a team do it like really kind of do that. ISOs are fraught with a lot of things, though, and they're good about it. And that might not be the perfect recipe for them either way. I would say hammering the glass, the offensive glass, is really going to be something that would help as well. So if you have those two bigs like Gasol and Randolph, and they are in position to get those offensive rebounds, that's what's going to keep like a team like that in the game. Right.
Well, that's where Tristan Thompson's so valuable for the Cavs because he's a skilled offensive rebounder. It's not just height and size. Like he's got a knack for getting in there and getting those offensive rebounds. But back to the Warriors and their switching. I think they're not doing as much because they're actually trying to keep KD weak side. So you'll see like there will be some like pre-action switching. You'll watch Draymond come ball side and they'll switch with Durant so that Durant's coming weak side. This is why he's getting all these blocks.
Yeah.
He's so long and he's actually really good at blocking shots. So they're really maximizing his skill set there by having him come from the weak side.
Absolutely. So, well, you know what? I think we'll wrap it up on that. Great points, great questions all. We'll be back here, I believe, on Wednesday. That's the plan, right, Dave?
Yeah, absolutely. And for you guys on Periscope, hit us up on Twitter. And if you've got any suggestions of anything we can do to make the show better or anything we can add, we're always open to suggestions. And we're doing it because you guys are watching. So, please feel free to reach out to us and say, hey, Dave, you know what? You move too much in your chair. Or, why is that weird old antique chair sitting behind you in the video? Anything like that. So just, hit us up and let us know what we can do to make it better.
Right. Dave, you need a cover for that outlet on the wall.
Don't get me started, man. I got to paint.
Okay. So, anyway, all great ideas. And also, feel free to share when you're watching us on Periscope. Share it on Twitter. Retweet our tweets. And let a lot, the more people we have in here, the better it is for us. So, don't forget, our podcast was released today earlier, and it's on iTunes and Citrus, so subscribe to there. Feel free to hop on iTunes and give us a nice review if you would like. That would be very nice of you. And anything else? We'll start to maybe we'll even do some fan nights where some fans can decide which game we're going to cover that night. Right, Dave? Isn't that what we're talking about?
Yeah, I think we should do that. I'd even be down for doing that on Wednesday. I'm not sure what the games are. Let me check the schedule before we sign off. Wednesday, we've got Indiana, Cleveland, New York, Oklahoma City are the ESPN games.
I don't know. The Pacers and Cavs might not be a very good game, and then the Knicks and OKC shouldn't be a good game at all. So it's definitely ripe to pick something else.
It's true. Minnesota, Denver, Miami, Houston. That could be fun. So maybe we could do a vote. Sacramento, Golden State at 8:30. At the very least, there could be some fireworks. So, that might be a good night. And then we're heading into the All-Star break. So,
yeah, we shall see. Well, either way, great show tonight, Dave. Thanks for everyone for joining us for the halftime and the post-game show as always. And don't forget, sports fans, at B-Ball Breakdown, we're not a channel, we're a conversation. You in? Are you in, Dave?
Yes, I am.